Dr. Asimov, at a time when science and technology are producing the almost incredible every day, how does a science fiction writer stay ahead of things?
Well, he doesn't really have to. I mean, everything that science does gives him new plots. Back in 1933, for instance, there were science fiction stories dealing with a world in which all the oil and coal had been burned up. And I said, my goodness, what happens if we do burn up all the oil and coal? That's the first time that ever occurred to me that this might be a problem. I worried about using up our fossil fuel supplies for the last 40 years. And most of the world has only started worrying about it a few months ago, you know?
I read a comment recently by a Russian scientist about an H.G. Wells story. The hero who has gone to sleep in London in 1900 wakes up in 2100 and he finds that London's power is being supplied by huge wind-powered machines over London, and there are airplanes about the size of the first DC-3s. And the scientist's comment was, the imagination of science fiction writers is certainly limited.
Well, that's true. If a New Guinea native thought of a future in which you could communicate between continents, he'd think of very loud drums, you see. It's very difficult, really, to visualize the real future.
I think you said somewhere along the way that whereas you used to write about these things in amazing stories, now you write about them in the New York Times.
You're right, about colonies on the moon, for instance, about robots.
How does a science fiction writer feel when something like that happens?
Well, it makes him feel very good. I'm a little annoyed with myself because I was so conservative. What we wrote about in the old days is now passé. We'll write about new things.
Perhaps the time had come to look ahead, since we are living right now in